On today's show, the Padres split a doubleheader somewhat disappointingly after failing once again against lefties of the form of Mr. Christopher Sanchez. But the silver lining is Manny Machado is an all-star, and I am being joined by Karthik Venkataraman of CBS 8 Sports to talk about it all. It's going to be a good episode, guys. Despite it all, we're going to push through. I've Locked On Padres.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, July 3rd. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for almost 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but also various other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. And today's episode, guys, is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show, guys, you can follow me, of course, though. Remember, at Javipeno on Twitter/X and Blue Sky, JAVIIPENO. We're going to be talking about the game 1 and 2 of this doubleheader. Then we're talking about Manny Machado. And then I got a special question, a very classic, easy question of describing the Padres in one word. All right, what do you want from me, guys? I couldn't come up with a separate topic. But the good news is it is not just me today. It is my new friend, Karthik Venkataraman from CBS 8 Sports, San Diego. You heard from Jake last week. Now we got another one. Sir, how are you doing on this fine, when we're recording Thursday evening?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, you say you're sometimes the host with the most. I guess I'm the guest sometimes trying to be his best, so that's what I'm trying to do here.
That was really good. I never heard that one before. Guest with the best.
I've been totally thinking it up for a couple hours, man, because I know you say that at the beginning of every single one of your episodes. I was like, I got to come up with something for me.
I love that, man. I love that. Everybody, let's get into it. No time to waste. Games 1 and 2. Padres win the first game, 6-4. Honestly, biggest story of this one, it's Nick Pivetta. And this one been one of the best offseason additions. Talked about this with Jake, actually, last week. Among all free agents, and he was excellent again. 6 innings, only 1 earned run. Did give up 7 hits, so did work his way out of some trouble, but no walks and 6 strikeouts. And then Manny Machado, kind of the hero of this one, bases clearing double. He's been the offensive firehouse all year long. He's been awesome, just really carrying this team's offense. Karthik, what was your kind of main takeaways from game 1 and just this Padres offense in general that, let's just say, it's divisive amongst Padres fans how they've been performing this year?
Yeah, for sure. Game 1, obviously, it's always good to win on the road against one of the best teams in all of Major League Baseball in the Philadelphia Phillies, who've obviously been playing good. So, you start right there. And as you mentioned, Nick Pivetta played really well. He's been playing well in a lot of his starts lately. And, for, as you said, the value that they're getting out of him, they're paying him the least amount and, the years of the contract that he signed this year at a pretty minimal value. And, the production he's been able to give this team has been stellar. You mentioned that he had to work himself out of some stuff today, but overall, Nick Pivetta, was really good. And strikeout numbers maybe not as high as we've seen in some of those somewhat recent performances where he's really dominated, but, for some double plays, for some ground outs, Nick Pivetta was good. I call him Nicky P, but I've never said that to his face and I don't plan on him. But yeah, man, he pitched really well. And yeah, obviously Manny Machado. I think the thing that was cool for Manny Machado for me was, he's in his career done such a great job with the bases loaded of getting, those knocks and driving home those runs. And this year he's not been as great as those years if you just consider by batting average. And for him to get that bases clearing, hit that he had that really opened the game up early for the Padres, that was big. And, obviously they were helped by Abel with, all those walks and, being able to bring in those 2 runs with Abel on the mound. And then later on, as, those relief pitchers came out, they got another walk run in. So, that definitely helped them in game 1. Without that, if you take the 3 runs, it's not the simple, I know, but if you take the 3 runs away, they lose the game. So, it's one of those things that graced a little bit to help their offense out, came up in some moments that they needed to. And obviously Nick Pivetta pitched a great game.
Absolutely, man. And look, Christopher Sanchez was supposed to be Nick Pivetta in him, I believe, until the game got rained out. So Christopher Sanchez, he ducked Nick Pivetta. Like, that has to mean something. He completely ran away from competition, and I think that means a lot. So shout out to Christopher Sanchez, who we'll talk about in a second. Last thing I want to talk about with game 1, though, Robert Suarez, man. Been talking about him a lot on this show. And before we everybody could watch, my everydayers know I've complained about him and some of his stats. He's very scary, gives up a lot of hard hit stuff, despite starting off good, and now he looks worse than he was last year lately. But for me, I don't know about you. I feel like if that play wasn't under review for longer, the throw out of Brandon Marsh at third base ends up being ruled safe despite Manny Machado and Jackson Merrill's best efforts. I feel like if that play was just ruled safe and we moved on, I think the Phillies get another hit and tie the game.
They might.
That's what I think. I think there's something about Robert Suarez just getting 5 minutes to just like chill out. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like that helped him. I don't know. Maybe it's just.
I'll tell you what, man, when Robert Suarez is coming to games lately, I'm not a Padres fan, but I get a little tense when he's getting into these games now, especially when you consider, what happened against the Diamondbacks, what happened against the Reds, that walk-off home run he gave up against the Dodgers. I mean, there's been a lot of recent stuff that's happened that'll make you tense up. As soon as he gives up a hit, I'm like, okay, here we go again. Robert Suarez, can he figure it out? But then you see the other side of it and the way that he's punched out some of these games recently, and he's hitting 101, 102 miles per hour and, getting the strikeouts. And he is one of the leaders in all of MLB when it comes to saves because of the usage that he's getting in all the close games the Padres have played in. By percentage wise, he really is, for the most part, getting the job done. But then he's in these situations oftentimes, and especially more recent than it was earlier in the season, that it's not gone his way. And I don't know if it is a usage thing or if he just needs the rest of an all-star break or something. He did get suspended for a couple of games there because of the Shohei thing, so there was a couple of days of rest.
Yeah, that's right.
It's weird right now. It's weird. You want to trust your closer, and right now I wouldn't say my trust level for Robert Suarez isn't good, but I definitely feel tense when he takes the mound.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys where it's been a little bit all or nothing for him lately. For my everydayers know this. The changeup that he started throwing more this year, very off. It's hitters are hitting, I believe last month they were slugging 718 against it as a stat brought up. So the having that secondary offering hasn't worked for him as much. So he's either whizzing it right by guys, especially in the top right corner, or he's giving up a really hard hit. And that's what makes him so scary. It's all or nothing right now. I still think he could be a good pitcher, but I'd be lying to you if I said, look, Adrian Monahan, Jeremiah Estrada, Jason Adam, those guys have been better than him for not just a couple week or two, right? But maybe the last month or so. So it is definitely something to keep an eye on. But I really do think, I was like, dude, if that inning kept going, if they didn't pause play, I think he might give up a bomb to Kyle Schwarber. I think the crowd was into it. I don't know. That could be just me. But we're going to talk about game 2 and what happened there. And the reason why we're talking about game 2 in the second segment is because there's not much to talk about. So we're going to quickly jump to Manny Machado, not to spoil things for everybody. But first, guys, a word from one of our sponsors. And that sponsor is our good friends over at Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices usually drop last minute as it gets closer to showtime. And you can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. And by the way, same goes for sports. You want to go to Petco? No problem. Did the happy hour end earlier than you thought? Or was there not one at all? And you're like, hey, let me go to a Padres game. Let me get some good food and all that. You can do that. And Game Time is the app to go do that with. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets and sports tickets, whatever, with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with Game Time. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing into the second segment with my man Karthik here on Locked On Padres. Remember, of course, everybody, you could go follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, to reach out with any questions, comments, or concerns, and we will be sure to address them. I might not always address them in the best way, but I do address them. Game 2 of this series, doubleheader, I should say. Padres end up losing the rubber game of this series, and it wasn't competitive at all, really. Let's be honest. 5-1 win for the Phillies. Honestly, again, there were 2 games this series that I felt like were super predictable. This Padres offense is in a rut right now. They are, let me actually pull this up right now. In terms of runners in scoring position this year, they have an 85 WRC plus, which ranks 26 of all 30 teams. And you knew that against a pitcher like Christopher Sanchez, a lefty, which they've struggled against this year, they were only going to have a couple opportunities. And at first they hit Karthik. It was great. Jack Merrill single, allowing Tatis to score, but then the Manny Machado double play, and it basically never materialized for the rest of the game. And then Dylan Cease, once again, super inconsistent. Unlike Nicky P, Dylan C is not doing it. 6 innings, though. At least he gave them some length. 4 earned runs on 8 hits, though. No walks, which is pretty funny. And then 4 strikeouts. Gives up a couple home runs. Max Kepler, and then was it Alec Boehm? Who did you give the home run to? Yeah, Brandon Marsh. That was the other one. Karthik, man, what was your first reaction to this one?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like, it's just like that first game when they had to go up against Zach Wheeler, who's been wheeling and dealing all year long. He doesn't give up runs in some games, it feels like, on a consistent basis. And then Christopher Sanchez has been pitching really well too. I think like the max over his like last 6 or 7 starts that he's given up is 2 runs. It's hard to get hits and it's hard to get runs off of those guys. But, the Padres have played a lot of close games. This is one of those I felt like they're going to have to play Sanchez deeper into the game, get towards that bullpen. And we all know the Padres tend to create a lot of magic when we get to innings 7, 8, and 9. So that's kind of where I was seeing that game as we started. And then the other side of it is, Dylan Cease. And I don't think he pitched as bad as maybe he has in some of the more recent games. It was really just a couple of pitches that cost him, which were the 2 that he gave up for what ended up being home runs that gave up, 3 of the 5 runs that the Phillies ended up scoring in this game. And, if those get placed a little better, don't get put in a spot where they go yard, then, we're talking about a different ball game. But, if, ands, and buts, whatever, it's just one of those things that, I felt like the margins of the game were fairly tight, and they had to be for the Padres because of who they were going up against on, the pitching side, and Sanchez for the Phillies. And ultimately, a couple of pitches for Dylan Cease cost him. And on Sanchez's side, he got the outs when he needed them to, and he didn't help with, those extra runs coming in and getting the Manny Machado double play and things of those nature. And sometimes baseball is just one of those things. That being said, I do agree with you. Runners in scoring position, the Padres have just not been good. The stats back it up, and, they leave a lot of guys on. And as we, alluded to in that first game, they were helped out by some of those walks to, help them get runs. They weren't really given anything in that second game. Tatis was able to get the third, which helped, Merrill, bring him home. But, other than that, it was really slim pickings for them as far as the offensive side goes. So, my thoughts overall was tough pitching matchup, and they didn't win the margins when they needed them to.
Absolutely, man. And look, like, get a little bit of a shout out to Tatis. Goes 2 for 4 in this game with a stolen base as well. That's always nice. I'm still, every single time he has a good game, I'm like, all right, now he's going to go back to super mode. But it's been a while now, so it's genuinely like, I don't know. That's a whole nother episode with all segments dedicated to him, potentially coming at you next week. But also a nice diving catch from him in the first inning. But overall, just not a great game for him. Karthik, I want you to guess, what is the Padres' record? I'm putting you on the spot. Okay. What is the Padres' record against the Philadelphia Phillies since 2021?
How many games have they played? Do I get that hint?
Yeah, I believe they played 26 games.
26 games. I'm going to go 8-18.
No way! Yes, that's it. Yeah, Karthik knows ball, folks. Oh my gosh. But honestly, I say we could have not even done the game recaps and just said Padres stick against the Phillies. They are the kryptonite of this team. I know everyone will bring up Dodgers, but Padres actually play the Dodgers pretty well every now and then. It's the Phillies. The same way the Phillies kryptonite is the D-backs. This is just something that happens for whatever reason. The Padres struggle, and they certainly did this series. But let's talk about some good news, man. Manny Machado named not just an all-star, but the starting third baseman in the National League. The best news of yesterday. Talk about Manny, man. I mean, where can we? I don't even know where to start, frankly, with Machado, because this is a guy who last year we're like, oh no, he's on the other side of 30. He was hurt, all these things, and he really struggled out of the gate. But then he was low-key great after the first 2 months of the season, probably because he was recovering. And now I think he's brought back the level of his game. I always knew he would be a very good player. He's got that like MVP talent still sort of in him. And I think that that's been just a nice, awesome revelation for him. Still just a few hits away from 2,000. Can't say enough about him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Manny's had, the first couple of months were a little rough. I think people were wondering, okay, where's the Manny we know? But, as the months go on, Manny typically in his seasons tends to get stronger. And, that's kind of where we're at now. There was a time where he was just ripping the ball over and over again, had all those games in a row where he had his hit streak. I think it ended at like 12 or 13 or something like that. I mean, the guy had it going for quite some time, and he's still batting like 289, which I think top amongst all third basemen as we record this, in the National League. And, he's top 3 in hits, in the National League. And his defense has been outstanding so far this year with what he's been able to do. And all those grounders that he grabs in foul territory and wings it over to first, or twirling around like a ballerina and launching him to first, whatever it is. He's got it on the defensive end, plus the great leader he is. And, when it came down to it, he won in the final voting to be the starter. And, it's cool. It's his 7th all-time appearance as a starter, just the 4th Padre to ever start an all-star game. You think about things like this, and you also think about the legacy and what he means to Padres fans, and for him to represent and go out and do the things that he continues to do, even as he gets older. It's really cool.
Absolutely, man. And look, you don't take it for granted, folks. Like, these are not players outside Gwynn and Caminetti and Trevor Hoffman. This is not a team or city that's used to having routine great all-stars. Manny Machado first also among wins above replacement among third basemen. In terms of all of baseball, he actually ranks 5th, which is wild. And it's not just because of Jose Ramirez, that freak in Cleveland, right? It's also random guys like Ernie Clement, Michael Garcia, Zach McKitchen. What is going on in third base this year? That's another show, right? Go everybody listen to Locked On Guardians, Tigers, Detroit, all that stuff. Go listen to those to learn about it. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, man, it's just so good to see. He's been there all year, and he's actually been getting unlucky in certain areas because he's hitting the ball harder than he ever has, or at least as hard as he usually does, and not always for home runs. He has 13, don't get me wrong, it's caught up, but there was that stretch, right? There was that stretch where it's like you only have 3 homers. He's not playing bad, but it's kind of weird. So that's been coming into play too.
Diaz had more home runs than Manny Machado for a little while.
I think he did. I think Arise did for half a second.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but recently, as you mentioned, like the power started to come. He's hitting those doubles. He's hitting those home runs, and he's starting to turn up, man. It's Manny being Manny.
It's great. Manny being Manny, leader of the team. And again, it's a tough position, but for the foreseeable future, I wouldn't be surprised if Manny Machado could be the front runner to start again next year, especially with Nolan Arenado on the decline, given the fact that Max Muncy is a fraud, given the fact that Austin Riley might be a fraud, all those sort of things, right? So it's just really great. And I look forward to seeing it. It's always great to see National League All-Stars as well. I am curious to see if other Padres make it. Will Tatis make it? Because as a whole player, he's been quite good. I think he's 12th in baseball wins per replacement because of the speed, because of the defense. But does have that PED tag, and his offensive numbers aren't exciting. That usually doesn't win you all-star votes and whatnot. So we'll just have to see. Can Jackson Merrill make a late run? Can maybe one home, maybe a reliever? We'll just have to see, folks. But we're not done with today's show, guys. We're not done. No. I got to ask Karthik his answer for what is the one word he would use to describe this Padres season thus far. I'll give my take as well. Just a second first. A word from our sponsors. And that sponsor, folks, is our good friends at the place that provides for the skilled trades. That is Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, don't worry. Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. It's not going to be a robocall. You're going to talk to a real person. It's great. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. And now, my Locked On Padres listeners, it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, I'm not done. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Go on and check that thing out. And just like that, everybody, we are in the waning moments of this here Locked On Padres podcast. Again, follow me one more time at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO on Twitter/X and Blue Sky. And Karthik, do you have a place where people could follow you, or no? I probably should ask.
You can catch me on X at Karthik V_. That's where I am, man. That's where I hang out. That's where all my professional stuff lives.
Awesome.
I don't
You said that's where I live, man. That's where I go.
That's my newspaper these days. You don't have to get newspapers anymore. You just hop on Twitter, see what guys like Shams, Adam Schefter,
man,
passing. Just hit them up right there, man. That's all I need.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Especially with trade deadline coming up, Jeff Passan will be a must, along with Dennis Lynn at The Athletic. If you want your Padres stuff, it's great sometimes when the app isn't being weird. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. But folks, let me tell you one word to describe the Padres season thus far. I say this, I was trying really hard, Karthik, to come up with what's a July 4th themed question, since this will be the last episode I record before July 4th. I'll be doing another one on Friday too, but it might be with a guest that I'm recording with tomorrow. And I was like, what's a freedom question? What's an independence question? And I was like, I'm forced to get way too much here, but let me ask you, man, what is the one word you would use to describe a very up and down, very weird, but certainly not as bad as some of the fans online seem to make it a season for the Padres in 2025?
Yeah, I'll go with all right. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they are getting more wins than maybe people expected them to. If you extrapolate this over the rest of the year and what their win total may look like when they get to the, if you're looking mid 80s, high 80s in that range, I think for most people that would, be maybe slightly above what their expectations were for this team coming into this year, or maybe right about at where they were supposed to be. They've looked really good. Obviously, to start the season, they were 14-3. They were the best team in baseball there for a stretch where they were playing lights out on both ends. And you were just like, wow, this team could be really, really good. Not just, one of those teams that wins in the mid 80s, one of those teams that gets up into the high 90s based off of how they were playing. And then, things started to taper off as the injuries came along and they went on that losing stretch for a while where things just did not look good. And, then they've been playing, about 500 baseball as of recent, it feels like, or, somewhere in between. Some games you're like, wow, they look good. And then other games you're like, man, or like that game against the Reds where they blew it. And it's just like, they should have had that one. And so it's a lot of ups and downs. And so I'm like, by the time I look at it all in all, we're down the middle of the line. And my middle of the line, one word, was all right. They're doing all right.
We gonna be all right. We gonna be all right.
Kendrick, come on now, Javier.
Look, I mean, I like to think that Kendrick would respect what the Padres are doing and not the evil team across town, because as you all know, it's evil and you don't like to root for evil. We have enough of that in this world. I think my word I'm going with is adequate. I think that it really needs to be brought up again. I think it was this is the end, apocalypse now for Padres fans after the Roki Sasaki signing. That was we don't have the money right now. In the middle of there's this lawsuit going on, right? Which we haven't talked about in the show in a while. Lawsuit going on. There's not as many free agents. You have the Bogarts contract. You don't have as much money to spend. Their prospects aren't as much there. So you're this is our chance to get a young, controllable asset. And the fact that he left early, so it wasn't money that was impeding him. Instead, he chose the Dodgers, and everybody was so frustrated by that. Then they went out and made a bunch of other additions as well. They signed Blake Snell as well. They signed Tanner Scott. It was DEFCON 17 for Padres fans. So I think that if you were to just take yourself back to that point in time and say the Padres would still be in a wild card spot, right? They would still have a chance currently. They aren't in a wild card spot. Or actually, they are actually. Huh, look at that. Apparently. At least according to MLB.com. Shout out to MLB.com. But if you looked at that, you'd be like, you know what? I'll take it. 46-40, 6 games above 500. You haven't had Michael King for a bit. For some reason, Dylan Cease stinks now. You kind of take that and you say, as long as you're not a horrible team. Now, of course, you want more, right? Because this is still a team that won 93 games. And if not for scoring, just going, 0 dark 30 for 24 innings, then you'd probably be in the World Series. At least that's what a lot of people say. And I'm not just saying that because the Dodgers literally said that. Shout out to them. They literally said yeah, that was our World Series. Of course it was. I think that it's just fine. They're fine. They're a fine team. I think they got a little bit. I think people got a little bit too excited at the beginning of the year because I don't think it was sustainable that your bullpen was going to lock down every single 1-run lead that you had, right? Like the entire month of April, 1 or 2 run leads, the bullpen locked it down. And that's good. I think the bullpen is good, but that's not sustainable, right? And I think that it's more that the team is fine, but there are certain things with the team that are frustrating. Jackson Merrill isn't slugging. Tatis can't really hit as much as he used to before. It's really like a big question. Do they have to fire their hitting coach? I don't know, right? Because this will be the 3rd straight year where it seems like Tatis's expected stats are trailing behind his real stats. And then you've got Xander Bogaerts still being this kind of albatross, even though he's played a little bit better lately. And then you've got just whatever is going on at left field at catcher, right? I think to still be 6 games above 500, you're still in the spot, and there's always going to be a team that breaks out second half. It happens every year. Last year was the Padres. The Padres were the breakout team of last year. I just think that it's very, very important to remember that there are a lot of good players out there, and things change really quickly. So adequate. Not because I don't think I was expecting the roof. I don't think I was. I think that this is a team that most people were like, yeah, well, unfortunately, they couldn't do enough, right? At least at the moment. We'll see what AJ Preller does at the deadline, man, but that's how I'm feeling.
I think there's a lot of, there's still a lot of baseball to be played, and that may be a cliche, but there is. And you don't know what's going to happen at the trade line, what moves they make, whether that's left field, whether that's catcher, whether they move some pieces out of their pen or whatever it is to try and get some more pieces. There's going to be, a lot of discussion that happens over. And like you said, after the All-Star break, nobody was hotter than them last year, as they absolutely turned up and was probably, if you think about it, all things considered, the most dangerous team in baseball by the time the playoffs rolled around. And can they achieve that level again? Can they get back to that? Can they get hot like that one more time? We're going to find out, I guess, real soon. But as you said, it's all right. I do think that the expectations after 14-3 were very high because they were just coming up in every single big moment. They weren't losing at home at all. Like Tatis was having an MVP type of year, and then things kind of went a different way as of recent. And at the end of the day, there's 6 games above 500. I think for me, looking at the picture and how many series the Dodgers are just starting to like clunk up right now and win, like. I think the division race is probably going to get out of hand sooner than later. I think really the wild card is something in play. And, they're right in the thick of the race. And it's going to be a matter of, those margins as we get down. That's why, when they lose those games where they, lose one to the Diamondbacks or, they give one up to the Dodgers late or lose a close one at home to the Dodgers or give up a game to the Reds, like all those games are going to matter when we get down. And, they've lost those close games. They've also won a lot of close games. So, that's really nitpicking and, maybe too much on my end. But, those games are going to matter at the back half of the season. And, as we get to the second half after the All-Star break comes around, we'll see. The Padres are going to have to come up with more of those wins than not by the margins that they're playing by right now.
Absolutely, man. Very well said. We will have to see what that future indeed. Maybe with a lighter schedule and not only having one day off might help a little bit in the month of July. And folks, speaking of having the day off, I don't have a day off, but the Padres do tomorrow. But we will be back on Friday with potentially another host of a friend of mine, Bryce Paddock of Locked On Rangers. But until that next time, everybody, you've been listening to the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and go check out my new best friend. You know when you like, oh my God. You know when you like puke in your mouth a little bit? You know what I'm talking about? It just happened. That was awful. That was awful.
We can talk about it. I don't think that people want to hear about it.
I don't think they do, but whatever. Karthik Venkataraman. You can find him on CBS 8 Sports, all of my local friends and Fire Faithful homies in San Diego. But until next time, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies. And don't, die mid-speaking when you're on a podcast. Until next time, take care.